Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks for joining me today. If you'd like to help support my channel, please check out my Patreon page. I'm here with round 2 of a Modern Competitive League. Let's have a look at the opening hands. 5 lands and an AEther Vial is a mulligan. The opponent's on the play. They mulligan to 6. This is a good 6 for us, so we'll keep this. Let's see if the opponent... what they do with their scry. They put on the bottom, and we'll put on the bottom as well. We don't need 2 Smuggler's Copters. Let's see what they're working with. Windswept Heath, untapped Temple Garden into Birds of Paradise. Okay, so we'll play Mutavault after drawing a Silvergill Adept. We're probably going to just jam Smuggler's Copter on turn 2. Opponent's second turn, they play a Forest and go for Devoted Druid. So we know what we're playing against now, Devoted Company. One of the most explosive combo decks in Modern right now. I guess Storm could give it a run for its money, but I think that Devoted Company decks are more capable of turn 3 wins. So actually, after playing Devoted Druid on turn 2, they would have access to turn 3 win if they played Vizier of Remedies and then just infinite mana'd into Walking Ballista. So we would love to draw into a Dismember or something, hit another Mutavault. I think here we're going to play out the Wanderwine Hub, revealing Silvergill Adept or Merrow Reejerey, because I guess that might be the next creature that I play, into Smuggler's Copter. We're just hoping Smuggler's Copter will give us an extra look at a card or 2 on the top of our deck, and maybe draw into some removal. So for turn 3, looks like the opponent just passed the turn with nothing. So... I think I might have made a slight misstep. Miscalculation, I guess, is better. I played Reejerey out here, thinking that his untapping ability would potentially generate some value next turn. Actually, I've got 2 Reejereys, so if I play the second one out next turn, I'll get double the triggers. So, I mean, it seems pretty good, but I think the plan here is to crew Smuggler's Copter, loot, and hopefully hit Dismember. Or... if not Dismember, I guess maybe Echoing Truth, something to be able to kind of interact and slow these guys down. Merrow Reejerey is the more aggressive line. If the opponent passed the turn with nothing, not even playing a land drop last turn, it might be the case that they don't have a particularly explosive combo win, in which case playing Merrow Reejerey would be the best because it opens up more avenues for me to potentially move towards an explosive win. But I think I should have played out Silvergill instead. In the event that I loot into a Dismember, I would have mana up to cast it right away. Well, I saw a Wanderwine Hub, which is nice because I need more blue mana, and I just ship one of my Island Walk Lords. I currently don't have access to Island Walk, and I only have access to 2 blue mana, so the Island Walk Lords are just kind of slowing me down a little bit here. Okay, opponent goes down to 14, but on my end step, it looks like they are going to, untap Devoted Druid and Cord for 2 to get a Vizier of Remedies. Okay, so going into their turn 4, they're going to have access to infinite mana, so I'm just going to sort of F6 here. Tapping, 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 and... yeah, a lot of mana. What are they going to do with all of it? Chord of Calling for 3. They get Ronas, which can pump a creature an infinite amount and attack. So I just scooped it up there. Against these kinds of combo openings, we don't really have much of a chance. Actually, I greatly prefer playing against Storm than Devoted Druid decks because... out of the sideboard, we have a lot more spell hate, like we have Dispels and Negates, but only a few pieces of removal with Dismembers and Echoing Truth. So this is a really, really difficult matchup. One of our toughest, though I think it's probably better than like Affinity and Elves. So lost game 1 pretty quickly. We did our best. I'm going to go ahead and click out of this window, so please look away if you don't want to see the match result. I'm going to click now. All right, back with game 2 against Devoted Company. I'm on the play, of course, and this is a pretty awesome opening hand. We've got an AEther Vial and Counter Magic and a Smuggler's Copter to hopefully help us hit some stuff. So Island Vial past the turn. Opponent, of course, has a fetch land into a Mana Dork. We'll tick Aether Vial up. Drew a land, not that great, but Smuggler's Copter will hopefully help us get rid of one or two of those extra lands. We do not need to leave Dispel up yet. The opponent's not going to be able to play Chord or Collected Company yet. Another fetch land for a Plains and Rona. So that's super duper slow. It's a good sign for us. We might have some time to actually get something going. Okay, another land. We'll activate Aether Vial and bring in the Island Walk Lord, immediately crew the Smuggler's Copter, and attack for our loot. So another island, pretty poor. I'll pitch the Wanderwine Hub. It'd be funny if the opponent played Choke, actually, but wasn't thinking about that at all. So for their turn 3, they've got a Scavenging Ooze, super slow, sort of mid-rangey stuff. Taking 2 to play a Stomping Grounds. And a Duskwatch Recruiter. So just going wide this game. No combo pieces yet. I guess Ronas is a combo piece, but it's really weak without infinite mana. So my hand is pretty poor right now. We really need the Smuggler's Copter to do some work. We'll leave Aether Vial on 2. That Dismember is awesome to see. I've only got 3 in the deck after sideboarding. Speaking of which, let me go ahead and open my sideboard. We'll take a quick look at what I choose to do against these guys. I used to bring in some Relic of Progenitus, but what we end up doing if we bring in relics is taking out too many creatures, and we really need to keep our creatures in. Our only hope of winning this matchup, I think, is having a strong plan A in the form of Beatdown. So we take out, I think, both Kiras because they're not really targeting our creatures. They have things like Fairground Wardens that can exile creatures as long as they're on the battlefield, which Kira could protect against. But in general, combo decks are not going after our creatures, so easy enough to take out the Kiras. I took out 3 Master of Waves, actually all 3 Master of Waves, just because their deck is so fast, we often won't have time to get to Master of Waves. And so let's see, that's 5 cards out, and I brought in 3 Dispels. And let's see, I left the 3 Negates in the sideboard, 3 Dispels and 2 Dismembers. So 5 creatures out, 3 counter spells, and 2 more Dismembers coming in. I've got, after sideboarding, the 1 Echoing Truth, 3 Dismembers, and 3 Dispels. So pretty solid. These decks, the Devoted Druid decks, almost always run the Kitchen Finks combo as well, which Relic can help against. They also run the Rallier card that gets things back from the graveyard. They run Eternal Witness, Renegade Rallier, I guess is the name of that card. So Relic can be decent value in this matchup, but again, I think all of our creatures are just better since we do need to just develop a quick board presence and win. So that's it for the sideboard. Let me know what your thoughts are on the strategy. So here, I'm going to activate Mutavault and crew up the Copter and try to swing here for 6 with these guys. If the opponent goes for some kind of double block on the Mutavault, then I could just Dismember in response if I wanted to. So there I looted into an Island Walk Lord, pitching an island. It's pretty awesome because now I can just throw that guy onto the battlefield with Aether Vial, push 1 more point of damage with Mutavault, and hopefully just accelerate a victory. Smuggler's Copter's been doing pretty well so far this game. Duskwatch Recruiter is going to transform since I didn't play any spells. That means they get to play their creatures for a little bit cheaper. So here's a Fairgrounds Warden. That's one of the few things that Kira can protect us against in this matchup, but we do have a Dismember if we feel that this guy's actually really bothering us by getting rid of one of our Island Walk Lords. Opponent decides to go with no attacks there. Of course, Ronas can't attack yet, but if the opponent gets Scavenging Ooze ticked up, Ronas will turn on pretty quickly. No creatures in the graveyard yet, though, so Scavenging Ooze just sitting as a 2/2 for the time being. All right, so we're going to leave Aether Vial on 2, hopefully draw something good. Mutavault, decent but not amazing. Just go ahead and crew up the Smuggler's Copter. The opponent's already down at 6. We've been hitting them pretty hard so far this game. Swing with the Copter and see what we draw. I feel like in this spot, against a deck that's running Court of Calling, Cursecatcher might be a little bit better than a Mutavault. So I loot away the man land. Opponent chooses to block with Birds of Paradise. They're way on the back foot this game. We're pushing a lot of pressure. And looks like before damage, they're going to go for a Court of Calling for 3. What do you guys think they're searching for? Are they looking for another Fairgrounds Warden to exile Smuggler's Copter? That seems like a reasonable possibility. Of course, Cord says that you can search for a creature costing X or less. So they could end up going for a Devoted Druid. They could get a Vizier of Remedies. I'm sure there's a lot of options they could get. But it seems like another Fairgrounds Warden would be pretty solid to exile Smuggler's Copter. It would save their Birds of Paradise from dying and prevent me from looting even more. Fortunately, I have a Dispel in hand, so pretty easy target for Dispel. Opponent's down to 2 cards. They're at 6 life. They lost their birds. And I'll just second main my Cursecatcher. Let's see, I did between Dispel and Cursecatcher, I played 2 spells, so the Howler is going to transform back into the Duskwatch Recruiter. Opponent just plays a land, and looks like they're going to get in with Scavenging Ooze here. Not very threatening. Let's see, there is a creature in their graveyard now, so they could potentially eat that with the Scavenging Ooze. Eternal Witness, well, they can get the Court of Calling back. That's pretty rough. But it looks like instead they went for the Birds of Paradise. I guess they're pretty afraid of the Smuggler's Copter, which makes it seem that much more likely that they were going to go for Fairgrounds Warden to try to exile our Smuggler's Copter. So there's another flying blocker. We can dismember it if we want to. And we drew into a Merrow Reejerey, which is excellent. We need to make our... Well, we enjoy making our creatures bigger. And casting a creature will allow us to crew the Smuggler's Copter with the Summoning Sick Merfolk. So I'll go ahead and play out the Reejerey here, leave up an island, in case I draw into something like a Dispel. We'll tap the Reejerey, activate the Smuggler's Copter, and I think we can just get in with everybody here. If they want to double block with a bunch of people, we've got a lot of pressure. Dismember can disrupt the balance of blocks by removing one of their creatures. Also, if I remove the Fairgrounds Warden, our creatures will get bigger with an extra Island Walk Lord. So we looted into a Harbinger, but I think right now Dismember is just better. So I pitched the Harbinger. And Harbinger would have been another body with AEther Vial, but Dismember is one of our key pieces of sideboard tech that helps us just protect against their combo. Okay, double block on Cursecatcher, and it looks like that's it. In order to save my Cursecatcher, which is also, you know, it only taxes them 1, but it is a little piece of interaction, a little piece of protection against their sort of explosive capability with spells like Court of Calling. I'm going to dismember the Fairground Warden, get my Island Walk Lord back, and again, just keep the Cursecatcher on the table. They're going to lose both of their creatures. We're going to lose none of our creatures, and we've got a pretty massive board right now. Okay, so the opponent scooped there. So we lost game 1 pretty soundly, and won game 2. You know, it was a bit of a grind, but Smuggler's Copter was a champ, drew us into some great stuff. And yeah, I mean, Smuggler's Copter is so good in a lot of matchups and just really pulling its weight there. Look away if you don't want to see the match result. I'm going to click out of this window right now. All right, back with the third and final game against Devoted Company. This is not the most explosive hand, but Silvergills will give us more card draw and hopefully get us drawing into Dismembers and such. The opponent mulligan to 6. Let's see what they did with their Scry. Okay, they put it on their the bottom of their deck, so hopefully we'll have a chance. Stomping Grounds, untapped for a Monodork. Pretty typical opening for them. I think they've had it each of the 3 games. We'll go with Cursecatcher here. We drew into a second Harbinger of the Tides, so potentially some action. Okay, so there's Devoted Druid. Opponents got the turn 2 Druid and didn't attack with Hierarch. That's pretty smart. The because I would have bounced it with Harbinger of the Tide. So instead, I can just go with Silvergill and see what I can draw into. Another land, not terrible. We've got a lot of spells that we can play. Druid as an 0-2 is stonewalling my Cursecatcher for the time being, so no attacks on our turn. Pretty cocky on the opponent's part, playing fetch land into an island, since our deck thrives on Island Walk. But with that mana, they play a Knight of the Reliquary, whose ability says they can sacrifice a forest or plains. And the breeding pool is also a forest, so if it gets to a position where I have an Island Walk Lord on the board and I'm attacking, they could always just sacrifice their breeding pool to go get a non-island land out of their deck and instantaneously turn me off of Island Walk. So a risk, but not the biggest risk, I guess. All right, they've got a follow-up. They're going to play a Selfless Spirit, so it looks like they're just going wide this game, though the Devoted Druid is definitely a threat to go infinite at any moment. Nice for us to draw a Spreading Seas because we can have redundant access to Island Walk now if necessary. So let's see. For my turn here, I think we're going to try to get some value out of Harbinger by bouncing their Noble Hierarch. It's not super fast, but it is some value. It'll take them off of some of their mana for next turn and force them to recast the Hierarch. No attacks this turn. We'll have 4 mana next turn, which will be pretty good. Opponent just replays the Hierarch, plays a fetch land, and they're down to 1 card. So they're going to get in the air here with Selfless Spirit, exalted from the Hierarch, and we'll take 3 going down to 17. All right, play our 4th land, and we've got a lot of options here. So what is your guys' plan here? Plan of attack. They're at 15. They've got 1 card in hand, 1 combo piece on the board. We don't have a lot in the way of disruption. I mean, we can bounce our Selfless Spirit. That's fine. We can also cast Cursecatcher to have deeper counterspell capability, but with the opponent having 4 creatures and 4 lands on the table, countering a Chord of Calling might be pretty difficult. Typically, they're just looking for a 2-drop, if anything, a 3-drop, so they could tap 6 things and leave 2 lands up for Cursecatchers pretty easily. I think I'm going to go Spreading Seas, Lord, and try to push 8 damage. The opponent's Knight of the Reliquary will have to... It'll probably sacrifice the Stomping Grounds in response. Let's just see how it plays out. All right, so going for Spreading Seas on the Stomping Ground. Opponent floats green, and then, yeah, they activate the Knight of the Reliquary. Pretty good play. It's going to prevent me from drawing a card off Spreading Seas. And they get whatever land they want out of their deck. Seems like Gavany Township is a good choice. They are apparently going pretty wide. And when they go wide, buffing their creatures with Gavany Township is pretty powerful. So Spreading Seas is going to whiff, but it's going to allow us to have access to Island Walk this turn, since the opponent couldn't also get rid of the breeding pool, since their Knight has to tap to use its ability. So play out the Island Walk Lord. Looking like we're going to swing for 8 here. Opponent gets a Plains before combat, and is going to use that floating mana and the rest of their lands to activate Gavany Township. So their guys are getting pretty big, but none of them can block right now. We'll get in for 8. Putting the opponent all the way down to 6, and threatening to win next turn. Let's see. Okay, opponent plays a Tireless Tracker. Again, so no combo pieces, but they've gone pretty wide here. The opponent, this is a pretty cool position for us. The opponent can't attack with their Gigantic Knight, because the only protection they have against Island Walk is the Knight sacrificing their breeding pool to take us off of Island Walk. Of course, if I top deck another Spreading Seas, that pretty much seals the deal. If we put Spreading Seas on Gavany Township, there's no way for the opponent to get rid of it unless they have Ghost Quarter or something in their deck, because Knight of the Reliquary can only sacrifice forests or plains, and Gavany Township is not a forest or plains. So since they have to leave him untapped to take us off of Island Walk, they're going to attack with Selfless Spirit with Exalted in the air. So of course we're going to take some damage here, going down to 13. And for our turn, we just drew an island. Not that great. So with 3 mana here, the opponent can't activate... Well, Gavany Township's already tapped. The opponent's plan for defense here is sack the Breeding Pool to take us off of Island Walk. We didn't draw into a Spreading Seas. But since we're unblockable until the opponent taps their Knight, they're only going to be able to block with their Mana Dorks and with Tireless Tracker. So we should still have a pretty powerful attack here. I think I'm going to start off with Silvergill Adept, since there's a lot of cards in our deck that could help us out. Negate is one of them. It's a nice backup in case the opponent goes for a Court of Calling or Collected Company. We can go ahead and play out Cursecatcher as well. Go to attacks and sort of see how it plays out. Choosing not to swing with the Lord, I'd rather not lose that guy in combat. Opponent does sacrifice their Breeding Pool, getting a Forest. One thing that I didn't actually fully play out in my mind before combat was the fact that when the Forest enters, they would get another clue from the Tireless Tracker. And if they sack that, the Tireless Tracker will get bigger. That kind of changes combat math a little bit. But with the opponent at 6, this is still definitely the correct line. All right, so looking like they were going to block all of them, but in the end, they went with a double block on a Cursecatcher. I'm definitely going to choose to kill the Devoted Druid. Before damage, the opponent is almost certainly going to crack this clue, getting to eat my Cursecatcher, which is a little bit of a bummer, but with this Harbinger getting through, the opponent will go all the way down to 3. All right, so combat not that bad for us there. And in my second main, with no combo pieces left on the board, the Devoted Druid currently in the graveyard after damage, I feel pretty comfortable playing out my Harbinger and bouncing their gigantic Knight of the Reliquary. So get that guy off the table. Again, Harbinger just forcing the opponent to recommit resources to the same creatures over and over again. Okay, fetch land, getting a bunch of clues. I think they're going to play out their Knight again. Makes sense, but that guy's going to be summoning sick for the time being. Birds of Paradise, so going pretty wide. The opponent's pretty low on time here. I've got a pretty massive time advantage. So realizing that if they attack in the air with Selfless Spirit again, I would have 5 creatures against 4, and with the opponent at 2, that would immediately lose the game. So wisely choosing to hold their creatures back there. Island Walk Lord is great because we just want to continue to match the opponent's board presence, actually to outpace the opponent's board presence. No good attacks yet, but if they don't have a creature next turn, then we just win. With Negate protecting us from Cord and Collected Company. So end step, we're going to see Clue getting cracked. Tireless Tracker is getting to be a pretty big boy. But we're at a pretty high life total. Feeling pretty comfortable. Opponent finds another Knight of the Reliquary. So again, matching our board presence. 6 creatures to 6 creatures. But now under 2 minutes, it looks like the opponent started getting a little freaked out. Realized that they needed to start applying some kind of clock if they were going to win this game and not time out. So they get in with a Selfless Spirit, but they're pretty much dead on board at this point. Moto lines up the creatures pretty nicely. So we see 1 against 1, 1 against 1, and then over here we have an unblocked Harbinger getting through for lethal. If the opponent wants to go for Court of Calling, they're going to have to tap too many of their creatures. Even if they get a Fairgrounds Warden, the balance of creatures is still going to be way in my favor. And obviously we've got a Negate protecting us from that kind of thing anyway. So I don't think attacking with Selfless Spirit was the way to go. But with no combo pieces on the board, I killed their Devoted Druid a couple of turns ago. And 2 cards in hand, their only hope is to win by attacking. Drew a Cursecatcher, not really necessary, but we'll play it out anyway. Opponent starts tapping, but then thinks better of it. And we'll just attack. Again, it's 6 against 5, with no blockers for one of my creatures. That's it. I managed to win against Devoted Company. It's a really difficult matchup. Maybe not one of our absolute worst, but definitely unfavorable. Something like 40-60, something around there, I'd say. Counter spells definitely help out of the sideboard. Let's go ahead and look at the sideboard plan one more time. feel like I might have changed it for game 3. I'm not sure. Let's see. I took out 1 Harbinger. Okay, so for game 3, I took out a Harbinger and brought in an extra negate. Counter spells just seem pretty good in this matchup. So let's see, 3 Masters, 1 Harbinger, that's 4, 2 Curas is 6. So took 6 cards out, brought in 3 Dispels, 1 Negate, and 2 Dismembers. So six solid cards in against the deck, and 6 spells out. The 3 Harbingers actually did a lot of work this game, forcing the opponent to replay a Hierarch, replay a Knight of the Reliquary, while expanding our board presence. So I feel good leaving in most of the Harbingers, but since their key piece, Devoted Druid, can choose to untap itself whenever it wants, the value of Harbinger is not quite as high as in some other creature matchups, so cutting 1 in order to make space for an extra counterspell seems reasonable. Alright, so thanks for watching, guys. Please let me know your thoughts on the matchup. Here's a link to the Patreon page if you want to take a look at that. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate all of you subscribers. And tune in the next video where I'll be playing the 3rd round of this Modern Competitive League. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.